Hello and welcome to Two Trees Gaming. We're taking elves, men, dwarves, orcs and Uruk-hai to one of the most competitive tournaments available for the Middle-earth strategy battle game. It's the Warhammer World Grand Tournament. The Grand Tournament is one of the most competitive events on the calendar. It's 700 points, you bring a good army and an evil army, and every game is good versus evil. The scoring couldn't be any simpler. You get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and no points for a loss. There's no soft scoring, so there's no bonus points for painting your armies well or playing nicely. We are here to win. Last time we came, we brought thematic armies. We're going to do our very best to try and get to table 1 if we can. We're still learning, but we're very up for it. I just want to take a second to remind everybody that it's double dice for anybody who signs up to the Patreon before the 1st of October. They really are glorious dice. The Barons made them. They're matte black with gold and silver inlays, and the only way you can get them is by signing up and supporting us on the Patreon. It really does go a long way. And please do support the Baron as well. They've got dice for all different types of game, Blood Bowl, Middle-earth, Warhammer, whatever you're into, they've got dice for it. And please use the discount code 2trees5. Back to the GT, we're still learning how best to film these videos. So I know we did a couple of little interviews on the day. The sound quality wasn't very good, so we've not actually used those, so I do apologise to those people. And you'll hear that in the car the sound isn't quite working right either, but we are working on that. There's still plenty to enjoy, and I would see this video as part 1. We're going to cover the entire GT, we'll do all of the games, run through the whole of it, and you'll see in a future video why this is part 1 of 2. I've bought Saruman and the Dunland, which did me well at the Throne of Skulls. I've got Saruman, Grimmer Wormtongue, so Saruman's obviously good for spells. I'm thinking 7... Pothole. I'm thinking at 700 points, most armies will be built around one big hero and a support hero. Saruman could feasibly shut down their big hero, and then if Grimmer follows around their support hero, they're going to have no might to spend, and I'll kind of just strangle the game from them in the most fun way possible. I've got Gorolf as my only hero with Heroic Strike. He's obviously going to hold me back a little bit. And I've got the Wildman Oathmaker. He's got about 12 Wildmen with him that are going to be fearless in 6 inches of him, but crucially, they're going to add to the Isengard army bonus, which means I don't have to take break tests to 66%. I've got Uruk-hai, I've got crossbows, I've got Fight 4, fighting through Wildmen, or Fight 4 stood in front of Wildmen protecting them if I need to. I'm hoping to draw the opponent to me, and I can make that last longer by immobilising at 18 inches. I can immobilise their big hero, and then they've either got to wait and take a load of crossbow shots, or walk at me and abandon their hero at the back of the board. Any thoughts on how you guys... What worries you guys about my list?
All the Wildmen.
Yeah, the Wildmen, yeah.
when they pierce and strike with their two-handed axes, if they don't die,
yeah,
you
going
got a
out
problem.
to defense what?
Defense 1 Wildman, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk us through your good army then, what you got?
Elendil, Isildur, and a Numenor captain, all mounted up, fully equipped, and about 25 guys, 2 banners.
And it's pure Numenor then?
Pure Numenor, 6 bows, 13 spears, and 4 swords.
So my only thing is, you've gone for Isildur, but he doesn't get the ring because Elendil's there.
Yeah.
Are you still backing him?
Yeah, it's a big hit, but still strength 5, 3 attacks, 3 might, fight 6.
Yeah, you can't argue with those things.
Yeah, I mean, that is...
For 135 points.
Yeah. And like, I know it's competitive, but it's themey, people are going to enjoy playing it. It's going to be great. Look, what do you got for evil army?
The Witch King.
Are you having to consult a sheet of paper right now? Is that what just happened?
No, I was trying to get my Witch King. Oh, he's falling.
Oh,
no.
He's
Oh, no. Is he on the floor?
He's on the floor.
He's on the floor.
Okay.
So I've got the Witch King, who's leading a few Black Numenorians, some Orcs, Spearmen, and a couple of Morgul Knights and a banner. Moran and banner.
Oh, God. You only Moran and Orc is a banner bearer.
I had a point to spare, it's fine. And then I have Razgush, so I could bring a few spiders, a bat, smoke spider, a couple more Orcs, a few fell wags. And then finally Kardush and 5 tracks.
That is horrendous. At least it's all base the same.
Hey, what happened to Gil-Galad?
So my good army is Gil-Galad, 7 Kingsguard. I've got quite a few elf bows, Aristor and Kurdan, and I'm thinking I'm going to sit there, bring the opponent to me. We played Heirlooms of Ages Past, which is Maelstrom. Gil-Galad comes on. The Witch King came on 90 degrees from him, and I made a dart for an heirloom. I rolled a 6, got the heirloom with one of my expert rider Rivendell Knights. I've got 2. And then basically Louis Witch King compelled that knight out, killed him in 1 turn, picked up the heirloom, and then the next turn black darted Gil-Galad, took his fate off him, and then Kardush
Arrived with a channeled.
a channeled flame burst, set him ablaze. No more Gil-Galad. So yeah, I'm going into this really confident. Thanks, Lo. So we're not talking about your armies at all.
Yeah.
Talk us through it. So you think we're trying to win as competitive as we can. What have you bought, good and evil?
So my evil is Pitsadol Guldur. So it is Azog on the White Wag, Keeper of the Dungeons, Captain, Thrain the Broken, because I want to unleash fight value 6, 3 attack dwarf into the middle of the line.
Tell us how Thrain the Broken works, because nobody uses Thrain the Broken.
I'm gonna be all over Thrain the Broken. So if you take a courage test for him every turn, if he fails, he's controlled by your opponent, and he's a fight value 4 strength 2, 1 attack dwarf. If he passes, I control him. If he passes on a double, he gains 2 attacks, 2 strength, and 2 fight value. So he goes up to 3 attacks, strength 4, fight value 6. Which you've got, I think, over 3 games, I've got a decent chance of once drawing out a heroic strike off an Emma.
Yeah.
Or something. And for 10 points, I'll take that. Or, like against your army, he goes into 2 elves at fight value 6.
Definitely let me know if that happens in a game.
Yeah.
This might be the only time you hear
And
of
then
this.
Azog gets 3 heroic combats, and for 1 turn a game, I can call priority, and you cannot counter call heroic moves against it.
Which is insane.
It's insane. A good army is Reclaiming Throne. So it is Thror with Young Dwalin, and 6 Kingsguard, and about 10 Erebor Dwarfs with Spears and Shield, and then Dane on a boar with Murin and Draw.
So Murin, Draw, Thor, and Young Dwalin.
And Dane.
And Dane. So
Yeah.
that's so much might.
I've got 14 points of might and Master of Battle with Dane. Everybody can heroic strike except for Draw, because Draw has the bow.
Yeah.
Draw has the bow. But then he gives me a bit of shooting in the backfield. He'll probably hopefully dehorse somebody. 3 points of might on a strength 3 bow. And
With 2 shots.
with 2 shots.
Yeah.
Thror's my leader.
But being able to get Dane, because Thor's your leader, Dane can just go
and smash
just,
into the biggest
just
hero he can
smash.
find. Yeah, just go and headbutt the biggest thing he can find.
Wow.
That's man-sized.
Hold Ground has one objective in the centre of the board. Players' armies arrive via the rules for Maelstrom of Battle, which are on screen now. You score 3 victory points if you have more models within 6 inches of the objective than your opponent, 5 victory points if you have twice as many models, and 7 victory points if you have 3 times as many models within 6 inches of the objective than your opponent. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 for killing them, and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent, or 3 if you break them and are not broken yourself. When one army is broken, roll a dice at the end of each turn. On a 1 or a 2, the game ends. If not, play continues and roll again at the end of the next turn. My first game was against a fantastic opponent, Arash. He bought Legolas and Thranduil, leading a mix of elves, Palace Guard and a Mirkwood Knight, and a Lake Town warband led by a militia captain. I won priority for the first turn of the game, which is not something you want to do in Maelstrom, and I rolled pretty poorly for my warbands coming on. I had Gurulf on one side of the board and the rest of my army on the other. But then Arash rolled poorly for his warbands coming on, and I decided to put Thranduil on behind Saruman and the Wildmen. My thinking was that Gurulf and his Crebain would be able to get to the middle and hold the centre of the board, and my Wildmen could die to Thranduil, and I would end up winning by default because he wouldn't be in the middle, and I would. Arash's last warband though, the Lake Town, deployed on the other side of the board, and now if Gurulf was going to hold the middle, he was going to have to kill those 7 models. Back with Thranduil and Saruman, Saruman failed a couple of compels on Thranduil, but Grimmer was causing him and Legolas massive problems. And I was all too happy for my Wildmen on the floor to die due to the Nature's Wrath and being prone. I did have a slight issue later in the game though. We realised that Grimmer should have been affected by the Nature's Wrath, and we decided together to take the test then and there. It meant that Grimmer survived, but he was dismounted, and his large base was actually blocking Thranduil in, who then heroic combated back toward the centre of the board and caused me real problems. The rest of the game was just due to Arish's amazing play. He basically mopped up where he needed to, shielded where he could, heroic combated into the middle, and in the end he won the game 6-0. He had one more model in the middle of the board than I did, and I was broken and he wasn't. It was a fantastic game and he was a great opponent, and we kept in touch throughout the rest of the tournament, and he ended up doing pretty well. But for now, let's see how Aaron gets on. His first game was against a Rivendell Knight army led by Elrond and Aragorn, who used a heroic accuracy every turn to make the most of their shooting. But Aaron was clever. He hid Azog behind a building and put a hero-less warband in the centre of the board on the objective. Ordinarily that would be suicide, but he knows that he's got an auto-win priority that he can use with them, even if there's no hero there. It was going okay for Aaron. He'd created a blockade between the elves and the objective, until 5 orcs died to shooting and created a path through for Elrond and Aragorn to take advantage of. With Aragorn and Elrond in the centre of the board, it meant that there was no might elsewhere in the battle line, and that's when Azog sprang. Aaron spent 5 might in a single turn to heroic combat through 4 mounted elves. That's a lot of points and a lot of commitment from Aaron, but he knew that he had an auto-win priority left in the bag, so his warriors in the centre of the board that didn't have a hero with them could still get the move on Aragorn and Elrond. Azog then worked his way back through the elves using his 3 heroic combats every turn. Aaron had a gambit where he decided to dismount Azog to add 2 models to the centre of the board and bounce into the middle with a heroic combat, but he actually lost the combat. Luckily for Aaron though, he also lost the combat next to the objective, and it meant one of his spearmen was pushed back into range of the objective. His opponent only had 2 models there. Aaron now had 3 spearmen there, and having broken his opponent in the last turn of the game, he won 4-2. I think that might be as close as you can get to drawing a game without actually drawing the game. The most minor of minor victories for Aaron there. Louis had a fantastic first game against a lovely opponent called Ben, who brought the Defenders of Helm's Deep Legendary Legion. Unluckily for Ben, myself and Louis had a practice game the day before with the same Maelstrom rules at play. Louis ended up moving on second, just like in the practice game, and where he'd compelled my Gil-Galad and killed him with the Witch King in turn 1, he compelled Halath, killed him in turn 1, heroic combated into Gamling and killed him, and then the following turn killed Theoden. Whilst that was happening, Aragorn was busy spending his will resisting flame burst from Kardush, so when the Witch King got over there, he could compel him and kill him with a heroic strike as well. It was absolutely brutal from Louis, and Razgush didn't even do anything all game until he got against Haldir, paired with a spider, trapped him and caused 16 wounds on him due to Bonebreaker. It was a pretty decisive victory for Louis, but a great game nonetheless, and we're all off to a pretty good start. After lunch is one of the best parts of every tournament, which is voting for the painting competition. Considering this is a tournament that isn't scored on painting in any way at all, the standard was incredible. I'm saving the best for last. I'm not going to show it here, but it will be later in the video, but the rest of this stuff is just outstanding. Louis did submit his Witch King. I decided not to submit anything as I'd used them at previous doubles tournaments and Throne of Schools tournaments, but I would never have had a hope against any of this stuff anyway. It is nice to get your stuff in the cabinet though, and Louis' Witch King is holding its own. So Aaron and Louis are off to a great start, and up next is Divide and Conquer. In Divide and Conquer, each army is split into 2 and is trying to claim key areas of the battlefield. 3 objectives are placed, 1 in the centre of the battlefield and the other 2 between the centre and east and centre and west board edges. Players take turns deploying warbands alternating between diagonal corners of the board. You score 3 victory points if you have more models within 3 inches of the central objective. If you have at least 1 model there and there are no enemy models there, you score 5 instead. The other 2 objectives each score 1 if you have more models within 3 inches, or 2 if you have at least 1 model and there are no enemies. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 for killing them, and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent's army. When one army is broken, roll a dice at the end of each turn. On a 1 or a 2, the game ends. If not, play continues and roll again at the end of the next turn. Divide and Conquer is a really difficult scenario for Aaron's dwarves. Luckily, he was drawn against a Mumakil and the same great opponent, Rob, that I'd played at Throne of Schools, using the Woolly Mammoth and his trolls. Dane took a massive trample from the Mumakil and then exacted his revenge using his higher fight value and the fact that he wounds the Mumakil on 4s. With a little help from Murin and Dra and the use of Dane's Master of Battle and a few lucky roll-offs, Aaron managed to do some serious damage to it, and he even managed to ram the poor thing into a house. And then with it having just 2 wounds remaining, he did something pretty cool.
With the Mumikil on 2 wounds, heroic combated off it, because what I was worried about was the guys that survived the fall would land on the objectives, he'd be broken, the game would end, and he'd actually control the objectives. So I heroic combated off the Mumikil
to mop up the floor, guys.
That is genius. That's actually genius.
So I moved great opponent, and I got a little bit lucky. I went to put Thror into the Troll Chieftain because I was going to heroic combat off the Troll Chieftain into the Mumikil and switch it up. But I was a bit like, I kind of did a bit of throwing the scores here because I'm risking Thror getting rendered and getting wounded. Actually, I failed my courage test on a 1-1, and I was a bit like,
I'll take that.
oh no, I tried to, just turning around, you just sit and watch. So Thror never entered combat.
In the end, he lost 3 dwarves in total and ended up winning 12-0. Louis, though, had a much tougher battle and was drawn against the Assault on Helm's Deep Legendary Legion. It was a pair of ballistas, 8 crossbows, plenty of berserkers, warriors and 3 captains, and a demolition team. Elendil ploughed straight into a captain turn 1, and now I need to consult my piece of paper because his opponent decided he was going to take out Elendil then and there with the bomb. He bombed 4 of his own warriors, 2 of his own berserkers, his own captain and his own ballista to kill Elendil and 6 Numenorians. And it's hard to argue that that's the wrong choice. Elendil hadn't made a kill all game, and in Aaron's words, if you've got the chance to blow up Elendil, you've got to take it. Luckily for Louis though, he did manage to win the game 7-4 thanks to Isildur's hard work. He was convinced that had the game gone on a turn longer or a turn shorter, he definitely would have lost, so we'll chalk that one off as a lucky win, but a win's a win. Now there's one army that Aaron plays every single tournament that I've never had the pleasure of playing, and it's the Rise of the Necromancer Legendary Legion. It's the perfect scenario for me though for it because I can spread my models out, I've got the numbers to take the objectives, and crucially I've got Fight 6 elves, so the resurrection rolls are going to be harder for him, and I've got Gil-Galad who's got the Blood and Glory special rule. We checked with the TO and they decided that when the raids do die, even if they pop back, it counts as them being killed, so the Blood and Glory will kick off. So I was charging Gil-Galad into 2 raids at a time, calling essentially a free heroic combat with an extra point of might to wound, killing those, bouncing into 1 or 2 more. I managed to get 25 points of might back over the course of the game. It was absolute carnage. I lost 1 Rivendell Knight to a spell from the Necromancer, and that was it. But honestly, it was his first tournament. He was a great opponent. Hopefully he's still playing the game somewhere. It was a very comfortable 12-0 win for me, but it was the worst possible matchup for him. It's going even better than we could have hoped, with Aaron and Louis both on 2 wins from 2, and myself getting a massive 12-0 win going into the next scenario, which is Fog of War. In Fog of War, you're trying to outwit your opponent by concealing your true objective. Each player secretly notes down one of their own hero models to protect and one of their opponent's hero models to target. This may not be the army leader unless they are the only hero. Also note down a terrain piece in the opponent's half of the board that you'll try to capture. Each army deploys 12 inches in from their board edge. You score 1 victory point if your hero to protect is still alive at the end of the game, or 3 victory points if they're alive and have suffered no wounds. You score 1 victory point for wounding your targeted hero, or 3 for killing them, and 1 victory point if you have more models within your selected terrain piece than your opponent, or 3 if you have at least 1 model there and your opponent has none. You also score 1 victory point for breaking the opponent, or 3 if you break them and are not broken yourself. When one army is broken, roll a dice at the end of each turn. On a 1 or a 2, the game ends. If not, play continues and roll again at the end of the next turn.
So it's the end of day 1 at the GT, and we've had 3 games, all excellent for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Best
day of my entire life.
Aaron, right, go on. Aaron, are you desperate to talk?
3 games, 3 wins.
3 games.
It's unprecedented. Never done it before. A whole day undefeated. Never happened. Literally
Have you ever
never.
had 3 wins?
I've never won my first game at a tournament.
No.
I've never won my first game. I've never won my second game. I won my second game with you that time. No,
Last year at the GT, your evil army killed only a horse.
Yeah, not now.
But you've used your dwarves twice and
My
Azog
pig
once.
has killed a Witch King now. So
So what have you just played then? Because we've done a little recap on the others. What have you just played?
I just played Angmar, the Witch King bird. a Barrow White, and I captain a load of orcs. And I'm not kidding, at one point there were 30 orcs, 2 turns later there were no orcs. And they just melted like butter in front of my dwarf heroic combats. Even 30 models, he started with 38 models and they all killed 2 in our heroic combats.
Oh my
like
God.
he's dropped like 12 models a turn just from my heroes.
You've got so much might and killing potential.
Just chuck it away, I'm just like, yeah. There you go. More might. But Ryan was unlucky. He hurled a warrior to Dane that just fell short. Otherwise, Dane would have been pigless.
I played Riders of Airma, which obviously you two know well from the doubles tournament review, which hopefully is online now. I had Saruman and my Isengard half, and basically the goal was to just dishorse as many of their models as I could. The -1 dual roll only affects the models that have charged in and that are cavalry. So I used my crossbows in a shooting wall. Basically, he shot a load at me, I put some pikes in front of them. It's got to go through the pike and then 6 to kill the crossbow. He then realised I've got to charge in. So then I decided, right, I'm going to stay, take another turn of crossbow shots, knowing I can auto-win priority
Why
with
didn't he
Saruman.
blind in light?
Yeah, so Gandalf was stuck at the back because I sorceress blasted him off his Shadowfax by hitting a rider into him on the turn
You're welcome.
that I won priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome.
I did steal that from you. But it meant that Gandalf couldn't move, and then he had a choice, stay and take shots from crossbows or move forward. And basically, he was like, right, I can't take the shots from crossbows. You've already dishorsed 3 or 4 guys. Aemon's got to keep his horse. I about-faced my whole army, so I went for Arkenbrand, and then I heroic combated with Gorulf into Arkenbrand, who had spent might points with Grimmer nearby. So he only had 1 might point, 2 attacks. I've charged him with like 18 guys or whatever it was. Great game. He was a great opponent. 12-0 win. So that's 2 12-0 wins and a 5-0 loss. But I'm happy with that.
Are we saying dishorses, right?
Me and Aaron finished with about 40 minutes left. So from a safe distance, we decided to go and watch Louis, who was facing off against the Return of the King Legendary Legion, which is the Army of the Dead, Aragorn, King of the Dead, and Legolas. Did he have Gimli?
No.
No, and then a couple of riders against Louis, Mordor Mash, and we could not tell who was winning.
So I chose to attack the King of the Dead. I knew Legolas would be at the back, hard to get to. And obviously I couldn't choose Aragorn as the leader, so I chose King of the Dead. I went round and got him in 1 turn with the Witch King, rendered him, 3 wounds in 1 turn, took him
Beautiful.
off the board. Next turn, Aragorn gets the Witch King in 1 turn.
At that point, your Witch King's literally spent 1 in the
Witch
game.
King's
Hasn't
literally
it? That's like
come
turn 2 or whatever.
the Dead with the King of the Dead once. He was obviously choosing Kardash because he was sniping him constantly with Legolas, and I figured that marching across
Give that away.
How did you work that out?
marching across the board and flame burst in defense 8 Army of the Dead was not worth it, so I hid in a hole with Kardash.
Yeah.
So at the end of the game, I was broken. Legolas had come out of his hidey hole to charge Kardash down. There was his only chance of killing him. But I was defending Razgush, so it was a double, not a bluff as such, because I needed to obviously defend Kardash because he was so clearly attacking him, but I still kind of threw Razgush in a little bit carefree, so he wasn't prioritising him at all.
At the point we came over, Razgush just stood next to Aragorn
And he wasn't
at the back of the
going
board.
for him at all because Aragorn was out of might and Razgush had 1 or 2 left.
Nice.
Which was great. But I chose the terrain piece in the middle. I'd worked really hard to get it, and there was 1 Army of the Dead guy in there, 4 turns, surrounded by bats and spiders and all sorts. I just couldn't kill him because if the game had lasted a turn longer, he would have killed Kardash and taken his terrain piece.
Yeah.
But I had 2 or 3 turns of taking my terrain piece. I only needed 1 more to break him. So it was a 7-7 draw, and I'd say fair result.
So, how many wins? GT?
No, this is not a collective just because you have the least. It was not a collective when we were sat in the car and I had 0 wins and you've got 3. Was it? So I have 3 wins, Louis has 2 and a draw, and you have 2 wins.
So 3 wins. So 8 out of 9 wins. Well done, 2 trees.
No, 7 wins and a draw.
7
out of
wins and a
9.
draw. Yeah.
You're taking it.
All day.
Oh my
all
god,
day.
you're taking.
Place your bets now.
Oh, don't.
Is Aaron gonna finish ahead of me and Louis?
I think I'm still going to finish on the bottom half of the day.
Yeah, I believe you can. So Aaron's on 3 wins. Feeling the pressure?
I'm actually all right. I'm a bit like zen about it because I'm not good enough to be on 3 wins. So I think it's now whatever happens, happens.
If for some reason Stoke are in the quarterfinal of the Champions League,
Yeah.
they're not really nervous.
You've got nothing to
They're
lose.
just
You've got
enjoying
nothing to
it.
lose. Yeah, you're just there to enjoy it. Yeah.
In Destroy the Supplies, you must destroy your opponent's supplies whilst protecting your own. Each player places 3 supply markers equally spread 12 inches in from their board edge. To destroy a supply, a model has to be in base contact with it in the end phase of a turn without having been in a fight, cast magical powers, used a missile weapon, or be under the effects of immobilize or similar spells. Armies are deployed 12 inches in from each player's board edge. You score 2 victory points for each enemy's supply marker that you destroy, 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 if you slay them, 1 victory point for breaking the opponent, or 2 if you break them and are not broken yourself, and 1 victory point if you have a banner alive, or 2 if you have a banner and the opponent doesn't. The game ends when one force is reduced to 25% of its starting number. For Game 4, I was drawn against the same Assault on Helm's Deep army as Louis, and I was really looking forward to it because Louis loved the game, but I was bricking myself about the bomb and the ballistae until I realised I had blinding light with Kurdan. He completely shut down the ballistas and the crossbows, and I ended up winning the limited shooting war that there was. I think the ballista hit maybe once in the entire game. I bubbled my army up, which is a little bit of a disadvantage in this scenario as I want to be spreading to get objectives, but I decided to try and stay within 6 inches of Kurdan, so the ballistas and the crossbows would need 6s to hit me, and I'd be able to make the most of Kurdan's terror special rule, and so be able to pick and choose where I was fighting, and hopefully deal with his berserkers quickly. Gil-Galad had a different job though. He was my objective grabber. He went completely separate to the rest of my army. If he was within 5 inches of any of my models, there was a chance that the bomb would be able to blow him up. The bomb can't blow up if there's only one enemy model in range. It's got a range of 2 inches from the bomb, but obviously that's a radius, so I needed to stay at least 5 inches from my friendly models with Gil-Galad. And Gil-Galad did such a good job. He managed to tag all 3 objectives and kill siege veterans to get might points back. I think he had 6 might over the game because he killed captains and veterans. Late in the game, things fell apart for me a little bit. There was some troublesome berserkers coming down my flank, and I didn't leave enough in defence, but I did manage to hold on and won the game 9-3 for another major victory. Louis' 4th game was a really thematic matchup against Kalman, who's a really nice guy that I'd played before. He'd bought Sauron, a Mordor troll, and about 30 orc warriors to play against Louis' Numenor, led by Elendil and Isildur. Kalman's army really lacked mobility, so Louis pinged all of the objectives with his captain as soon as possible and made it Elendil and Isildur's top priority to kill as many orcs as possible. They did that easily, but then Sauron came into play. Louis got really lucky though, and he won combat against him 3 turns in a row, but failed to cause a single wound with over 30 dice, some of them just needing 5s. And then Louis had a choice to make. Some of his objectives had been pinned, and he was broken. He could choose to take his courage test with his warriors first and have the game end as a draw, but that really wouldn't do anything for either of them in terms of winning the overall tournament, so he decided to test with his heroes first and charge in on Sauron. One of them was going to end up winning this game. Luckily for Louis, he caused a few wounds, and it was him that won. So you want to find out how Aaron's doing. He's on an unprecedented 3 wins in a row, and we're all rooting for him. And when I say all, I mean everybody except myself and Louis. He got drawn on table 3 against Arash, who'd beat me in game 1, so if nothing else, he's got some 2 trees vengeance to elicit. Arash started the game really well. He used a heroic march with his Lake Town captain. Even though he had all the shooting and would be able to control the game, he knew that he wanted the game to take place in Aaron's half of the board, so that they were near Aaron's objectives, and that's what happened. He marched over the halfway line. They were fighting near Aaron's objectives. Aaron managed to break through with Azog and ping all the objectives by dismounting, but unfortunately, Arash managed to ping Aaron's objectives. Aaron's orc line melted and his Gundabad captain died in single combat to Legolas in 1 turn. It meant he was really lacking might points, and by the end of the game, it all came down to whether Aaron's Gundabad banner could survive against the Lake Town militia captain and 2 Lake Town. If he could survive for just that 1 turn, Aaron would get a draw. If not, he'd have a very narrow loss. So 2.5 hours of gameplay came down to 1 fight. They both rolled 5s, it went to a roll-off, and Aaron lost. Unfortunately, his banner was killed, and he ended up with the smallest of losses. But at least it was to a great opponent, and more importantly, me and Louis might be able to overtake him now. So you'll remember I said I'd seen the best display board I've ever seen? Well, here it is. Luckily, I was nominated as one of the best boards at the tournament as well, but compared to this, I didn't even want to be up there. This is absolutely glorious. There's washing lines, there's Lake Town warriors on fire, There's Bard shooting his bow using Bane as a arrow holder. I don't know quite how that works, but it's cool. And then Smaug's been converted to have 4 legs, so he's more like the Smaug from the book. It's incredible. The details are insane. The snow, the weathering, all of it. Well done, Phil Beale. It was his board. Louis played him using the Riders of Theoden at the last tournament, and it's thoroughly deserved. Lords of Battle has each player deploy anywhere in their half of the board. Keep track of the number of wounds that your army inflicts on the opponent's army. Fate points and models fleeing count towards this count, as do slain mounts, but mounts that flee do not. You score 3 victory points if you've inflicted more wounds than your opponent, 5 if you've inflicted twice as many, and 7 if you've inflicted 3 times as many wounds as your opponent. You score 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 for killing them, and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent, and 3 if you break them and are not broken yourself. When one army is broken, roll a dice at the end of each turn. On the roll of a 1 or a 2, the game ends. If not, play continues and roll again at the end of the next turn. And there's a special rule for this scenario. Each time your force kills an enemy hero in a fight, one of your heroes in the same fight regains a point of might. For Louis' 5th game, he was matched up against an Angmar army with Guldur and the Witch King. Louis managed to shoot down the Witch King's horse in turn 1, and then in his words, the dice just got better from there. Even when the Witch King spent 2 points of might to black dot Elendil's horse, Elendil managed to roll a 6 and stay on his feet, kill 2 orcs in heroic combat, and move into a Barrow White and kill that. Guldubar's good, but Louis had so much killing potential, he actually managed to table his opponent. That's a massive result from Louis on table 3 at the GT in the second to last game of the tournament. But I should say it was a great game, and his opponent was so nice. Myself and Leon had played him in the first game of the previous doubles tournament, where he'd absolutely schooled us with his Wag Riders. It's so nice to see so many familiar and nice faces near the top tables at such a competitive tournament. Let's see how Aaron's getting on though. It's in the balance whether he's going to be able to stay up near the top tables or not. So it's Lords of Battle. It's Aaron's scenario with his dwarves. He's got about 17 models and a lot of killing potential and not a lot of wounds to give. What does he get matched up against? It's Aaron. He gets matched up against the Rise of the Necromancer Legendary Legion. If the game had have ended on the first turn that it was able to, Aaron would have won. But unfortunately, all of the raids resurrected. And it meant that Aaron ended up losing 7-0, but it was a respectable score of 21 kills to 29. So it was on to my game 5, and it has haunted me since I played it. I was playing against a really nice guy called Gethin, who I'd played in my first ever tournament, and he taught me some of the basics of how to just play the game, including things like wrap around models to trap them, really basic stuff. I even managed to win that game then with an Assault on Helm's Deep style Legendary Legion before the Legion actually existed back in 2018, I'm going to say. I think it got in my head though, kind of a master and apprentice dynamic, and basically I just wasn't thinking. I did what you do when you rock up to a tournament and then you roll the dice, you decide which side you're going to deploy, and I said, yeah, I'll just stay here. I hadn't looked at the board. There was 2 fenced areas on his side of the board, nothing on mine. He was the Paths of the Druidan Legendary Legion, and he just dropped Garn Burigarn and all the Wozers inside a fenced area where the opening was on the other side, so I would have to walk round that, taking blowpipe after blowpipe before I could actually fight them, or chase down his cavalry. I decided to go with the latter, and I tried to close the gap as best I could, but he was very diligent in his measuring and made sure he stayed 24 inches away from me at all times. It was kind of painful to play against, but it was entirely my own doing. It was nothing else Gethin could do other than pepper me and fall back. I did have one resurgence where basically the kills were very much in Gethin's favour, but I managed to compel Theoden out, who was next to Grima, so couldn't resist and was basically a vegetable, heroic combat off him and get a load of kills, killing horses and riders. Saruman had managed a couple as well with Sorcerous Blasts. I was trying to Sorcerous Blast 1 rider into 2, kill 3 horses and 3 riders. I only managed to get that off once, unfortunately. But I did manage to bring the score back to about 15-17, but in doing that, I'd spread my lines so thinly, I was just outmatched the next turn and lost the game massively. In Domination, one objective is placed in the centre of the board. Each player then places 2 more objectives anywhere on the board at least 12 inches from another objective and 6 inches from a board edge. Then, players roll to determine who deploys on which side of the board. Each player may deploy anywhere in their half of the board. You score 2 victory points for each objective that has one of your models and no enemies within 3 inches of it. If there is an enemy within 3 inches of it but you have more models there, you score 1 victory point. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent. The game ends when one force is reduced to 25% of its starting number. So I won't be winning the GT this year, but Louis might. He's on table 1 in the final game of the GT at Warhammer World. It's a momentous occasion for Two Trees, and we're wishing him the best of luck, and he gets drawn against the one army that he didn't want to fight.
You're worried about Riders of Theoden, aren't you?
It's just a lot of low-level heroes. I've got a few tricks for shutting down a big hero, like Gil-Galad.
Please don't
Lots
remind
of
me.
low-level heroes. I could shut down, half a chance of shutting down an aimer, but then you've still got Theoden and Daewine and...
Yeah.
Right, we have just come out of the... No, we've just come out
Come
of
out of the GT.
the... No. Thank
I'm
you.
just saying, you know. We've just come out of the GT. Welcome to Two Trees Gaming.
We've just come out of the GT. Louis just
Where
had
have we come from?
just come out of the GT at Warhammer World, and Louis had a game on table 1. What were you playing? What was the scenario? How did it go?
Who played Riders of Theoden. He had a troop heavy Riders of Theoden. Theoden, Gamling, Dernhelm, and then about 15 Rogar, 15 Riders, give or take. And I was obviously going in with my Mordor. It was a domination scenario. So we laid out objectives. I tried to keep mine as close together as possible. He tried to spread his as much as possible because he had the mobility.
Fair.
And he then won priority, switched sides. So then he stood at the back with the close together objectives and stood there and shot me. So I had the Fell Beast down to 1 wound very quickly.
Hang on, sorry. So at the start of the game, you put your where the objective markers would be down, and then he swapped table sides because he won the roll.
Leave it.
Oh, that's table 1. That is.
Table 1.
That's what I should have done earlier.
I didn't belong there.
Oh god.
So I was on the back foot from there. There's a bit of rough terrain, so I thought with the spiders I got half a chance of doing something. I managed to trap Dernhelm with bats and spiders, which was great. 3 turns on the row. Didn't wound though. And then the Witch King was kind of out because getting shot a lot, so I couldn't overly commit. I then did, and I managed to get in with Theoden, but he tanked the hits.
You didn't manage to get Theoden, did you? Because I popped over to your table when my game finished with Theoden and the Witch King were having a duel. But obviously Theoden would have been priority number 1. What happened there to stop that?
So I struck. He couldn't strike because I'd compelled him. But then I think I struck my last point of might. So then went in with 4 dice, rolled a 5. He rolled a 5 point of might.
Okay, so it was a really tough game against a really tough opponent and a matchup you didn't want.
Yeah.
You were actually hoping for the Bears, weren't you? Because it was one of those two looking at the tables.
Yeah.
So you got unlucky against the Red. And what was the final score?
11.
11-0. So unlucky. But look, table 1. Two Trees has been on table 1.
In the last game as well, it's like World Cup final.
And the last game as well. And you want to lose to the winner as well.
Yeah.
So, like, fair play there. Because obviously Callum, he did go on and win. So fair play to him.
Yeah.
So Louis couldn't quite get over the line, unfortunately, and I'm actually heartbroken for him, and you can see he's a bit shaken from it. But what an experience to be playing in the final game of the GT at Warhammer World on table 1. But what it does do is open the door for myself and Aaron to overtake him, and crucially, this is part 1. Part 2 will be coming very, very soon, but for now, let's see who finishes highest out of myself, Aaron and Louis.
But that meant me and Aaron are left duking it out to see who's going to finish higher because we're both on 3 wins. Louis obviously got 3 wins and a draw. No, 4 wins and a draw.
4 wins and a draw.
Well done. So we're on 3 wins going into the last game's Domination, and you got drawn against Thorin's
Company with Pits of Guldur. I Hail Married, as I do. I was a bit tired. We were both a little bit tired. I had an opportunity to eat Bilbo with Azog, which took. He heroic defense, and then I kind of put a screening line of warriors, and then he heroic combated off 1. So then in literally the second turn of the game, I'd use my auto win priority, and he heroic combated Thorin, Nori, and then Bilbo, halving Azog's fight value. wounded him, took all his fate off. Thorin does D3 wounds, so I spent 3 points of might to resist those wounds.
Oh, because of Orcus.
Because of Orcus.
Yeah.
That was his high point, unfortunately.
That's his big Hail Mary, isn't it?
Yeah. I used up loads of resources, used up loads of might to win combats, heroic combats. I won a few key roll-offs. The Keeper of the Dungeon heroic combated off Gloin into Gandalf. Sorry, he heroic struck to kill Gloin. He then heroic combated off Boffa into Gandalf.
Oh my god.
So I killed Gloin in one turn, then Boffa and Gandalf in the next turn, which was a bit brutal. Gandalf had blasted Azog off his Wag, which actually did me a favour, because the Wag stays, you put Azog into base contact with him, which meant I could drop him the wrong side of Thorin. And then he has to kill the Wag to get through to... And the Wag still had 2 wounds. So he's actually... And then Bilbo had ringed through. He was going to heroic combat. He used the ring to come through the other side of Thorin to trap him with the ring on. He knocked... Anyway, Azog ended up killing Bilbo.
Long story short, Bilbo dead.
And Dwalin and Thorin finished the game, and I won 11-1.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then it's on to me. If I could win more than you, I'd win.
Spoiler alert, Ryan owes me a drink.
So I have played the Ryan that Aaron played, which was Angmar. So it's Witch King, Borrowite, Birder, Orcs. And basically Círdan...
one job.
Círdan failed a terror thing on his first turn, so he couldn't channel that. So I didn't have that. Because I'd failed the terror thing, one of his spectres moved one of my elf warriors out. The Witch King flew into it, heroic combated, hurled my elf down the line, threw Gil-Galad off his horse, Círdan knocked down, and the elf. If the elf dies, bearing in mind he's taking a strength 6 and then 2 strength 3s, he heroic combats back out behind his line. The elf survived. Gil-Galad ended up standing up, and then the next turn I win the roll-off. So that's when I jump in with Gil-Galad. He's down there. I've got most of the might in the game because he'd already spent 1 with Birder to call a move, 2 with the Witch King to do heroic combat, and then win a combat. But then basically, I controlled the game, and I was a right mofo at the end because I wanted to beat Aaron. Ryan, Aaron's disappointing you.
So disappointed.
Because I wanted to beat Aaron, I was like, I need the 12-0. Aaron stood over my shoulder this one. I'm like, Aaron, I've got to go 12-0. I'm shielding, letting his guys run, not letting certain ones run. I control the game because of the might. I win 12-0. Final standing, need official confirmation, but final standing we think is Louis and... Hi, Lou. Put it on the Bohemian Rhapsody video. So final standings, it's Aaron in 12th, myself in 10th, and Louis is the winner in 8th. Which was a really great showing from all of us. We're absolutely over the moon. We're not competitive players by nature, so it's nice to know that we can do it when we really want to. We really, really love the tournament. And the next tournament review up should be the Warhammer World doubles review, where I pair up with Louis and Aaron and Leon pair up together. And the next video on the channel should be the dwarves going through Balin's tomb. If you're enjoying all the content and liking all the different types of videos, we're really, really trying hard. Please subscribe. Please like, comment, do all of that, and please join these guys on the Patreon. There's a little Discord chat, it's quite lively, it's really fun, and it would mean an awful lot to us. The money just goes straight back into the channel. Thank you so much for watching, we'll see you again soon. So final standing then is, we think but not confirmed, is Aaron in 12th, me in 10th, Louis in 8th. But great tournament, great opponents, great armies played. Very happy with the armies we took as well.
Yeah.
And the next one is going to be doubles, which is going to be Aaron and Leon pairing up. And you've got an idea, haven't you, for...
Yeah.
It's what you like...
Gandalf the White, Aragorn and a load of knights.
Gandalf the White, Aragorn King and a load of
Celebrating
knights.
the coronation by smashing Warhammer World of Doubles.
Oh, and I won a painting award. Again.
It's upside down, you
Every time. But I reckon if I can get 2 wins out of 3 somehow,
yeah,
I can beat you.
Yeah. I've been laughed at.
Don't make eye contact.
I made eye contact. I just want to go roll some dice. I used to really enjoy this.